Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is scream. And I thought this would be a great day before Halloween verb for us to discuss. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that you can use this verb. The first way you might encounter the verb scream can mean to give a long, loud, piercing cry or cries, and it could be someone expressing excitement, some type of great emotion, or possibly even pain. When I think of this first definition, I think of really old video of the Beatles coming to the United States. And there were so many teen fans doing this particular verb, right? They were giving these loud, piercing cries out of excitement. And some might say great emotion. They were so excited and happy to be seen and experiencing this in person. A second way you may encounter the verb scream being used can mean to cry something in a high pitch or frenzied way. With the second definition, you might think of someone really raising their voice and screaming or yelling, help, 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 over and over again. That might be in that kind of frenzied sort of way. A third way scream gets used as a verb could mean to urgently call attention to one's views or feelings, especially ones of anger or distress. You might hear of certain protesters screaming about a particular issue or policy or change, trying to, again, bring attention to the particular issue that they feel most passionate about. A fourth way scream gets used could mean just to make a loud, high-pitched sound. We can use this to describe that sound that humans might make when they're frightened. We sometimes use it in connection to animals of all kinds, again, making a rather loud, high-pitched sound. A fifth way scream gets used can mean to move very rapidly with or as if it were a loud, high-pitched sound. Sometimes in literature, I've seen descriptions of high-speed trains screaming down the tracks, right? That's that idea of moving very rapidly. For now, you should know that scream is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms screaming. The past tense and the participle form of our verb can be made by adding ed. Now, the base verb, scream, ends in a voiced M sound. This means when I add the ed ending, it's just going to make a D sound. I'm not going to add an extra syllable when I pronounce it. So the past tense and the participle form of the verb should sound like this. Screamed, screamed. Now, we are going to spend some time today looking at phrasal verbs that use scream. As you can already tell, there are a number of different or alternate ways to use this particular verb in conjunction with our prepositions or particles. So we'll be looking at those, and I'll try and do a little verb tense review as we go along. The first phrasal verb we'll discuss is to scream at. This could mean that someone is shouting loudly or fiercely at someone or something. An example of this in a sentence could be, that manager screams at his team. So here, maybe we're talking about, again, a coach, some type of or supervisor in a workplace who shouts, perhaps when he's upset, when he doesn't think people are performing at their highest level. This is a sentence in the simple present. We're describing a habit or a routine. Now, a second way we can use scream at could mean to attract someone's attention in a jarring sort of way. An example of this might be, do the room's new paint and curtains scream at visitors as they enter? So here, this is another simple present question, a yes or no question. And what we're asking, maybe this color combination is very loud, maybe it's very contrasting, bright, but we're asking, does it sort of attract people's attention? Maybe there are some patterns that don't seem to go together, but that's what we sort of mean by kind of jarring. It maybe is quite surprising in sort of a negative or unpleasant kind of way. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to scream down. This can have a number of meanings. One way to use it is to mean to overwhelm someone into silence by shouting. An example of this might be, protesters will scream down the controversial speaker and prevent the event from occurring. Here's a sentence in the simple future using will. And it sounds like a group of people have decided we don't want to hear the words someone else has, so we're going to make a lot of noise to prevent this person from speaking and maybe from a collection of other speakers joining together for some kind of event. A second way to use scream down goes back more to that fifth definition about something moving at a high rate of speed. So here it might mean to fly or plummet from the sky at a great speed. An example of this might be, the plane screamed down after both engines failed. You can kind of imagine, right? This plane starts to go down at a high rate of speed. Another phrasal verb you may encounter is scream for. It means, or one way I should say, is to use it means to demand something by shouting loudly. An example of this, the children have been screaming for more screen time. Here's an example of the present perfect progressive or present perfect continuous, talking about an action that started in the past, continues into the present, and may even continue into the future. All right, so we can imagine them demanding more. Okay. A second way to use scream for could mean to have or display a high desire or demand for something. An example of this might be, fans are screaming for more. This is an example of a present progressive or present continuous sentence, something happening right now. So maybe these are fans at a concert, right? They don't want the singer or the band to stop performing. They desire more, and they're demonstrating probably through lots of cheering and loud noises. Now let's look at a few more phrasal verbs. The next one is to scream out. One way to use this phrasal verb might mean to utter a very loud or piercing type of cry, shriek, or shout. An example of this could be, she screamed out in pain as the EMTs examined her. Here's a sentence in the simple past tense. We're describing a completed action. EMTs is referring to emergency medical technicians. So these might be trained medical professionals to respond in emergency situations. Another way to use scream out could mean to shriek or shout something very loudly. An example of this, the parents screamed out their children's names as they searched. Okay, so here they are shrieking and shouting specific names, trying to locate their children. That sentence is also in the simple past tense. Our last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is to scream with. This can also have a couple different meanings. One way to use it means to utter a louder piercing cry, shriek, or shout due to something. An example of this, workers screamed with frustration as the news was announced. So we don't know what kind of news. Maybe it's layoffs, right? So some people are going to be out of work, or maybe there's going to be forced overtime that day. But we can kind of imagine, right, these loud noises being made due to their particular feelings and emotions. A last way to use scream with could mean to have an attention-grabbing abundance of something. Abundance means a lot, a great deal of something. An example of this might be, their latest work is screaming with originality. So whatever idea or thing we might be talking about, it could be a book, maybe a movie, a piece of music, something else. But this feels completely new, doesn't seem similar to other things that previous artists maybe have produced or created. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words and phrases related to our verb of the day, scream. The first word we'll discuss is the noun form of this word. The noun scream has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation as our verb. It also can have a number of different meanings. The first way to use that noun scream is to refer to a long, loud, piercing kind of cry. That could be expressing emotion or pain. It could be a sound really just an animal makes as well. So an example of this might be, where are those screams coming from? It might be something a little Halloweenish as well, right? Something we hear in a movie or TV show. Sometimes people do that to kind of be a bit eerie or spooky here in the United States around October 31st. Now, a second way to use the noun scream is to talk about an irresistibly funny person, thing, or situation. This usage is maybe not quite as common in 2025 as it was in the past, but you still may encounter it. So if somebody says, this show is an absolute scream, it probably indicates they think it is funny. It might be this idea that you're laughing so much, it's almost like you're making these loud cries. Now for a couple phrases. You might encounter the phrase, someone screaming bloody murder. Here we're talking about someone making these loud noises, so they're shouting, or maybe even just complaining a great deal and very loudly in a public manner. An example of this might be, the child screamed bloody murder as his father removed the bandage. So sometimes when we use this phrase, we might be suggesting someone is almost overreacting, right? It's not so serious as if someone has witnessed this like horrific kind of crime, but we can probably imagine someone reacting to that discomfort that might come with removing something that has adhesive or is a bit sticky. One more phrase for us, and that is to scream one's head off. The idea here is someone is screaming very loudly, or they're making this noise with great intensity. An example of this in a sentence might be, the fans screamed their heads off when he hit the grand slam. So in this last week, the World Series has started with Major League Baseball here in North America. And in game one, there was a particular person who hit a home run when all the bases were loaded. So they score 4 runs in a single play. That's called a grand slam. And fans of the particular team, right, they were so intensely excited and making noise. I knew this verb was coming up, and in that situation I thought, aha, there's my example sentence. The fans were screaming their heads off. Is a great way to describe that kind of joy and intensity. Well, I really appreciate everyone watching today's verb, and I hope you all have a great day and a great Halloween.